Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very senior coach from Oman, Benita Stafford-Smith. Benita, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Benita is a master certified coach and an accredited coach supervisor. In her own words, she's an artist of life. She's the founding president of the ICF Oman chapter, and she's the author of 2 books and the co-author of 2 more. So, Benita, tell me, let's start with asking you a question where you say you're an artist of life. Please help me understand this with an anecdote or an example.
I say I'm an artist of life because I think we need to be very creative about how we live.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, live every minute of every day. So we get to create that. And so I think everyone is an artist of life.
Okay.
So I would ask the question, what picture are you painting?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's move on and ask about your coaching journey. What made you become a coach?
Well, I will say restlessness.
Mm-hmm.
So I was at that time in technology sales, and I was selling technology in the southern US at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been in sales for 12 years and I was getting restless with it. As many people do with their careers, we get to a point where we think, oh, we need to do something else.
Mm.
And I was coming back actually from Atlanta, Georgia, and I read an article about this new profession called coaching,
Mm-hmm.
which used to be very exclusive to, very wealthy and to royalty only, and was now making inroads in the business world. And as soon as I read that, I said, that's it. That's what's next.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. So I signed up for coaching school.
Wonderful. So, when I was growing up in the corporate world, working for large companies 40 years ago, coaching and mentoring was done either by a family elder or by a senior colleague who took a liking for you.
Yes.
What has changed in the world today that coaching has become a profession and people are willing to pay for it?
I think what has changed is the amount of time that people have,
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the corporate world where, it's do it faster, quicker, for less money.
Mm-hmm.
And so senior leaders are focusing more on results than on, not all senior leaders, but the focus tends to be more on getting results faster, quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And that means less time for developing people.
Okay.
And that it's fascinating, and thank you for mentioning that, because the mentoring and coaching are very different.
Correct.
It used to be done by a family elder, which was absolutely fabulous because they had a personal investment in you.
Correct.
But now you see a split even in that, mentoring and coaching being very different. So we see mentoring as being someone with expertise. So if I'm a coach mentor for new coaches because I have expertise in coaching.
Mm-hmm.
If I wanted to learn about balance sheets, I would go to an accountant for their knowledge in balance sheets.
Correct.
Financial analyst. But coaching is more about who you are and how you want to craft your life and what do you want, what's your purpose, what are you here to do?
Mm-hmm.
Not just at work, but overall. So the coaching focuses more on a life purpose or a satisfaction level, and mentoring on expertise.
Very interesting. So, you are saying that there is a difference between coaching and mentoring. How can coaching benefit an entrepreneur or a professional?
In 100 million ways. Not kidding. If it will only benefit people who want something different.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want, and I want to say more of something,
Mm-hmm.
and often that's often more satisfaction or a sense of that you're contributing to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be just your world. This gets really, I'm going to say some people try and make this really complicated. You have to have a life purpose and contribute to the world. go, you know what, it might be the fact that you raise beautiful, healthy, happy children. That's an amazing purpose, amazing contribution to the world. But you can also do that in the corporate world. So, yeah. So anybody who wants to contribute to the world in some way will benefit from coaching.
Very interesting. And you are a coach, and you mentor coaches individuals who want to become coaches. You must have worked with leaders across different corporates and spectrums. What would you say is the difference between coaching a senior leader or a CXO leader and an emerging leader?
I would say the difference is how much training they've had. Usually senior leaders have been, in the past, have been trained to beyond belief in training. But they actually haven't had someone sit with them to sort out, well, how do I actually apply that specific leadership model in my organization, with my team, within our market?
Okay.
And emerging leaders are still learning some of the skills. They also need to learn how to apply those skills in their organization, with their teams, in their markets, but they don't have as many skills. And I would say that's a big difference.
Interesting. And my next question is now coming straight to coaching. I've often been asked this question: who should look for a coach, and at what stage in life should one look for a coach?
Well, I guess I'll answer that by saying I've had a coach for the past, I'm going to seem very old here, but I've had a coach for at least 30 years. I just find it to be it's such a great tool for giving me, we have an expression in English: you can't see the forest for the trees.
Sure.
And sometimes when you're meshed in something, you can't see it. My coach really helps me see a different perspective. So I will say, whenever you want a different perspective, which to me is all the time, look for a coach. Okay.
And my a follow-up question to that would be that, you've said that you've had a coach for a very long period of time, but in general, how long should a coaching association be?
I don't think there's a rule.
Okay.
I find it to be a very, very, very helpful arrangement. So I still have a coach, actually, because there's still things I want to do with my life and my work. But sometimes I think it's helpful to change your coach, not to always have the same coach, because sometimes you just need a different perspective. And it's really up to the individual. You have to feel really comfortable and trust your coach. If you don't, then change coaches.
So that's an interesting response to give me a segue to my next question. How does a coachee evaluate whether the coach that one has is good or not?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So I'm going to say the first thing you look for is to make sure that coach is actually professionally trained. So make sure that they have a credential of some kind from a professional coaching association or a governing body of coaching. That's step number one, because there's a lot of people who call themselves coaches. They can spell the word, but they've never been trained. So really look for an accredited, a coach with a credential. And then the second thing, and one isn't more important than the other, is to make sure you're comfortable with that person. There needs to be a good relationship between the coach and the coachee. There needs to be trust. There needs to be openness to say whatever needs to be said without people being offended. Because people tend to think of coaching as a soft skill. And a big part of coaching is accountability.
Well said.
So it's sometimes not soft.
Well said. And conversely, what do you look for before you agree to take on a coachee?
Before I take on a coachee, their willingness to do things differently. That's the most important.
Fair enough. I've got two more questions related to coaching, and then I'll move to another part. This is the age of the millennials and the Gen Zs who are now getting into leadership roles in different organizations.
Yeah.
What kind of coaching needs to be given to the younger people, and how do organizations prepare to coach their young leaders?
Yeah. Also, I'll say what's different between coaching a person my age and a millennial. When I first started coaching, we had very strict rules about you had to have 2 coaching sessions a month, and you had to sign a contract for at least a year to begin with. And millennials aren't going to follow those rules. They want coaching when they want it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a greater need in corporations for anybody who has staff reporting to them to have coaching skills.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be on demand. You still need some scheduled times to focus on specific things, but you really need on-demand coaching. Now that person is sitting in front of you and you recognize an opportunity, they're ready to do something different. That's a coachable moment.
Okay.
So I think there's even more of a need for coaching, not necessarily for managers and leaders to become professional coaches, but to know how to use coaching in their organizations for the millennials. It will be on demand.
Okay, well said. My next question to you on coaching is, you're working in Oman, working across with different organizations. How does culture impact coaching?
Culture always impacts coaching. I don't care what country you're in. If you're going to coach in a country, do your research, know the culture, know what it's not okay to do and what it's really good to do. And I don't care what country you're working in. The culture is the very fabric of people. Know the culture of the organization you're dealing with. So not just the culture of the people or the country, but also the culture of the organization, because that has such a huge impact. And not what's written on the wall this is what our culture is, but to find out from the people in the organization, from your senior leaders, what's the culture, what's really going on here.
Okay. So now let me move to your books. You've written 2 books, you've co-authored 2 more books. Tell me about these books.
Well, I'll start by saying writing is one of my passions because it allows me to think differently. But my books up until now have been very business focused, coaching focused, and business focused and coaching focused. But I'd like to share with you what's changed is that I believe it's really, really important for us to be creative and to try and stretch. I call it stretching my brain, getting my brain to discover new pathways. And so I've just partnered with another lady, and we've written a movie script. And that was really challenging because it wasn't business, which is what I've done all my life. It was a fiction. Okay. So up until now, I focused on business, on coaching skills, on coaching in organizations. I co-authored a book with another person about what you need to think about before you retire. You need to start thinking about that 10 years before you retire.
Okay, tell me a little bit about your business books, and then we'll talk about your book on retirement, because I've also got a book on retirement.
So the business books are, one is called Now to Wow, which I hope is self-explanatory. And it's about being an artist of your life. And what are you crafting? And it's step-by-step how to go from now to wow, using a coach approach.
And for my viewers and listeners who don't know Now to Wow and who don't know you, would you like to tell us a little more about the book? About what was the hypothesis? What made you write it?
Oh, just because I wrote it because I believe there was, and will always be a great need for people to sit back reflect on their life today.
Mhm.
Where am I at?
Mhm.
And then decide, where do I want to be 5 years from now?
Mhm.
What, and to, when I say reflect, understand your core beliefs, your values. So lots of tools in there about the process of doing that.
Mhm.
And
And
that's
and what was the process that one would follow to understand where would I be 5 years from now? When I say I, mean not me, but one.
so I think that it really begins with dreaming.
Mhm.
It really begins with seeing beyond what you see today and dreaming sometimes impossible dreams. You might think that's never going to happen.
Mhm.
But if you can dream it, then you can start working towards it. It may come out differently than what you dreamt,
Mhm.
but you've got to start with dreaming. You've got to start with what are the possibilities?
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll use myself as an example. I lived in Canada until I came to Oman. I never, if you'd have told me when I was 20 years old I was going to live in this country, I would have told you were crazy.
Mhm.
But life unfolds, we change, and our dreams change, and our possibilities change.
Mhm.
So I think it's important that we sit back every few years and go through that reflection process and look at possibilities, begin with dreaming, and then look at our values, our beliefs, have they changed? And then start designing what we would like our life to look like.
Mhm.
We start designing it, and then we put in action steps, baby steps at a time.
Mhm.
It is just a magic formula. Today I'm this, tomorrow I'm that. So
Okay.
you take step by step.
I understand. So let's talk about your book on retirement. Tell me about the book and some of your thoughts in it.
Well, the most fun part about writing that book was I interviewed a lot of people who had already retired.
Mhm.
And it was so interesting how, because people are fascinating. The thing I love about people is everyone's different. And, retirement isn't any different. Some people were extremely happy with their retirement, and some people were extremely dissatisfied.
Mhm.
Felt like they had lost everything because their whole life was their work. So I think the thing I really learned from writing that book was that you need diversity in your life. Your
Mhm.
life cannot be just about work, because one day it might be retirement, it might be a company reorganizing, might be you didn't reskill along the way, and work is going to go away.
Mhm.
Then what? Then what?
Okay.
So then crafting the then what.
Mhm. And your thoughts on the then what?
Again, it starts with dreaming.
Mhm.
I'll use an example of one of the people I interviewed was a CEO of a fairly large company, not a multinational, but a large national company, and then retired and was sitting at home one day and realized that the most important thing that happened in his life was that the courier was coming that day.
Mhm.
And he said, enough. And he started designing a life of building boats.
Mhm.
Which is something he was dreamed about in his lifetime, but had never thought it was possible.
Mhm.
So it was an interesting story about when you believe it, when you can dream it, and you start taking those steps towards it, your life changes.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Benita, on that note, thank you very much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you for talking to me at such length about your journey as a coach, about all the inputs you're giving to so many individuals and helping them. And thank you for speaking to me about your books, and good luck with your movie script.
Thank you. And thank you for having me as your guest. It's my privilege.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.